Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Beth, and today I just finished reading Misery by Stephen King. This book was published in 1987 and is about 340 pages long. I've been meaning to read this book for a while. I am a huge fan of the 1990 film Misery of the same name, starring Kathy Bates. I believe that's how she won her Oscar, actually. And I've put it off for so long just because of the price range for this book. It's honestly one of Stephen King's shorter novels, if you can tell. He usually writes above the 1,000-page mark, such as with The Stand and It. So I've thought to myself, if I find a used copy, I'm going to buy it and read the book. And so finally one came along, I grabbed it, and what I can say is this book deserves to in fact be a staple of modern literature. The storytelling is very meta, and it really touches upon self-harm and insanity. Psychosis, to be specific. I think that if you love the movie, you need to read the book. I don't think you don't need to read the book beforehand. I'm a firm believer that you should read the book after you watch the movie, because if you love the movie, then the book is just further insight into the movie that you watched. And I think for this book, it's actually perfect that you do it in such a way, because I love the fact that you actually get to read the book that is written within the book, so to speak. So to give you a quick summary, the basic premise of the book is that a famous author who writes popular novels, much like the romantic Fabio novels that you've seen in the section, basically schlock. He writes it, and it's the Misery series, and he's a very firm fan base, very well known, but wishes to make something more reputable. But basically, he drives off the road after finishing his latest novel, which is supposed to be more of the literary design. It's supposed to be upscale fiction as opposed to what he usually writes. And he gets drunk, drives off the road, and his number one fan saves him, so to speak. Essentially, Annie Wilkes kidnaps Paul Sheldon, who is the author, and holds him hostage and makes him write a book for her because he kills off Misery, the main character of his books, in his latest novel. So she tortures him. There's a lot more gore in the book than in the movie, so if you cannot stand the gore in the film, maybe abstain from reading the book. But if you, like me, can enjoy good gore now and then, you'll really enjoy the book. For one thing, you actually get to read what he wrote for Misery, as opposed to there's only 2 times where they're really mentioning the book that he's writing within the film for the 1990 film of the same name. While in this book, you actually get to read everything that's going on, so you get a deep dive and almost understand Misery as a character and how it parallels to his own darkened state of mind, because usually his books are quite light, but this one has kind of devolved into something more sinister, and that's possibly because of his mindset while being tortured to write a book. I do think that there's a few surprises. If you love the movie, it's still going to surprise you to read the book even after all these years. There is a fake out at the end of the novel, which I personally is the basis for what happens near the end of the film, where he believes he sees Annie Wilkes, but she's actually not there. And in the book, Stephen King becomes very meta and says that Annie survives and she kills him. Then he basically said little prior to that he would never write a novel about what he experienced, and because it would only be a piece of fiction. And in the fake out, he kind of proves that he did just that. So it's very enjoyable. It's a little tilt of the hat once it clicks all together. You also get to read Annie Wilkes' kind of, I would say, memory lane. You get to read what she did before kidnapping Paul Sheldon, how her urges were not something new. It was something she'd never been able to control. But what you really get a lot from this novel is her going insane. Like, she's always had that kind of psychosis inside of her, but the self-harm increases and her grip on reality also decreases. She doesn't really understand what is okay and what is not okay and what is actually within a moral, like correct morals. So I think that also the font is really fun to play with in the book because the typewriter that Paul Sheldon is writing on, basically at first it's just missing the end, so you get to see him writing in the little ends for much of the book. And you know that they're actually handwritten because they're all basically different. And then you'll see as different letters drop off from the typewriter how you kind of have to piece together, oh, what letter did he lose next? Because there's just spaces. So you go, oh, I think the T's are gone. Oh, I think the E's are gone. And then you see more written in letters within the next excerpt. But it's still very enjoyable to just kind of see that attention to detail. I really enjoyed it. I did hate when the book went to longhand because I could not read the cursive. I tried very hard, but it's just very messy. Obviously, that's the point, and obviously I got the idea of what was being said in the book within the book, but it was just a little hard for me to read. I think if you've never read a Stephen King novel before this is probably one of my favorites now, but I've only read a few. I've only read The Shining and The Stand, and I would recommend reading The Stand, the unedited version by Stephen King if you really enjoy this, because that one is like 300 pages less than the current edition. And I hope you enjoy my review. Had a good one.